You could meet a woman back before social media in a broken down vehicle, cruising down Crenshaw in Los Angeles, cruising Sunset in Hollywood. This used to happen on Fridays and Saturday nights, cruising Whittier in East LA. Okay. I grew up in Los Angeles. I'm giving you LA stories. There was a thing called cruising. Okay. Where you're cruising your vehicle, sporting your vehicle, whatever you had, right? And there would be another vehicle of some ladies, maybe 5 or 6. And one of those ladies in the vehicle would be interested in you. She would see you and you would see her, have eye contact. Some smiles would be exchanged. Next thing you know, you're in the parking lot and you're having a conversation for about 15 minutes. You exchange numbers and there you go. Case closed. This was the way. That old school way that our grandparents and great grandparents did was working in the 90s and early 2000s. The cutoff was right about 2010. That started the change up. As Twitter began to rise, Instagram became a thing. The dating apps started to take over even more than they were, right? Because a lot of stuff was being planted between 2000 and 2010. Facebook, Twitter, and all those things, right? So before all of that, you could go on simple dates. The things that most women would consider boring today, women loved it 15 years ago, 20 years ago, anything before 2010. Women loved it to a point to where the date could be you go to a simple hole-in-the-wall restaurant, and then you go in the park, sit down and have conversation, and that's the date. You could even go on a beach date, right? Where you go to the beach and you don't even necessarily have to participate in anything going on at the pier. You don't have to go to the restaurant. You don't have to do anything. You could just walk on the beach and talk for 2 hours and that be the date. This was back before social media. Women were open to this, guys. Ladies, yes, once upon a time, women were open to this. All right. You didn't have to have this long checklist. You didn't have to buy the big $250 meal at some high-end restaurant. Okay. You didn't have to offer Gucci bags. You didn't have to have a blue check mark on any social media platform. Status was important. Status was important. Yes. Like I said, hypergamy has always been around. It's nothing new. Okay. Guys who had status had access. This goes back even hundreds and thousands of years. We know this. But in terms of the overall dating experience, it was very much alive and very much 1, 2, cool. It worked. Okay. You didn't have to make 6 figures just to get a woman to say hello to you. You didn't have to have this access to the yacht party. You didn't have to have a yacht. You didn't have to have a Bugatti or a McLaren or a Lambo. You didn't have to travel to all these locations every 3 months and have proof of that. You didn't have to have all this. All you needed to do was have the confidence. Now, mind you, I'm not complaining about any of these things. I'm not complaining about any of these things. I understand it. But once upon a time, very simple stuff got you a conversation with a woman. These kinds of things happen, man. And it's pretty amazing how easy it was back then as long as you had confidence. And luckily, my confidence started in terms of talking to women at age 17. I caught it early. For some men, it develops later. But for me, age 17. So that's why I say 1993 to 2010. If I have to give a timeline to it in terms of the best years for the dating process, 1993 to 2010 for me. That's age 17 to 34. So the change up happened after 2010. I started to notice things changing, started to hear stories of things changing, So now it's that long checklist. Now women have this long checklist. We have this thing called Instagram where now women have access. They can get a message from someone who's high end because, of course, now we have direct access to people in high positions. including if you want to network. You want to network with someone in a high position. That's the upside of social media. You now can have a direct connect, but now they're sucking them all up because the women have it. They see it right there on IG. There it is. And they don't even realize that they're eliminating a very large percentage of men. They don't even realize this because they're so hooked to their phones and IG and the DMs from the blue check marks. So they don't even realize how many men are being eliminated from the equation because now they have tunnel vision via IG and social media and dating apps. Tunnel vision. But long story short, yes, dating was easy. And I can't say I sympathize for you guys because, you just have to make the adjustment, I guess. But man, I do wish I could take you in a time machine back to that time so you could experience it. If your parents haven't told you this, boy, they have done you a disservice because, wow, what a difference. Women were so much more open, so much more open. I remember getting flashed on the freeway sometimes, getting numbers on the freeway. Yeah, getting numbers on the freeway, man. It seems like women were just more open to being approached. And it didn't matter as long as you have the confidence. Now, there's some women today who still operate within those codes, where if you have the confidence, you can go up to an attractive woman today and talk. But now we have the hashtag thing, right? So now that creates another barrier because a man could be very confident in himself, but still don't want to approach because he's worried about being accused of harassment. So now we have that extra layer. Ladies, for you ladies that are worried about men not approaching you, there's a lot of elements at work here. There's a lot of risk involved. All right. Now, can we bring back those easy elements of dating? Will that actually make a return? I don't know. It would be interesting to see it make a return. How would it make a return if it did? Most of you think that it will not return. For those of you that grew up and were adults in the 90s and early 2000s, and you actually remember the things that I'm talking about, you probably don't think it could make a return. How would it return? Will women change to being more open and shrink their checklist? Most of you guys don't think so. Most of you think that it'll continue going in the lane that it's been going since the 2010s. Hypergamy on steroids. Okay. If it makes a return, maybe the inflation will do it. Maybe the inflation will do it because now people are going to be a lot tighter because, those gas prices are not going down. Things are still going up. So I don't know. It's interesting to think about, isn't it? Will women be forced to shrink up their checklist because they'll realize that the pool has been shrunk so much, right? They have tunnel vision because of social media and what they see via their experiences, the byproduct of that. But they're not talking to the guy that works in sanitation. They're not talking to the blue collar guy. And that's another thing too. The guys that were blue collar could get the 8s, 9s, and 10s as well. Parking lot pimping. That was another thing that used to happen back in the days where you didn't necessarily have to go to the club. You could go to the parking lot when the club closes and just post up. Ladies coming out. You might get some eye contact and a smile and strike up a conversation, and there you go. So that was another element that did actually work, and women were open to this. Okay. Of course, some women didn't like it. I'm focusing on the things that actually worked. That's what I'm focused on. So there were a lot of things that actually worked. And the biggest thing was cold approach. Me and my fellas getting together, going out to the mall. Yes, the mall. And we would have competitions. How many numbers can you get in a certain amount of time? And that was a fun game to play. And you would go up to the ladies and you would strike up a conversation, get a number, and there it is. And if it turned into something awesome, cool. If not, cool. You know what I mean? You weren't necessarily worried about it because it was a way to put this in motion, practice your ability of talking to a woman and see what the result is. And women enjoyed it because, you had the confidence, you carried the conversation, just talk, you treated them normal. A lot of attractive women would not be approached because a lot of men were shy about this. So when men would approach with confidence, it was something rare in 1997. It was rare in 2001, 2005, right? So for an attractive woman to experience this pre-social media, it was like, wow, I'm hearing something different. This man is very well put together. He has the confidence to talk to me. A lot of these guys don't. I'm hearing a lot of the same cat calls all the time, but this man is different. He approached me different. I'm going to give this guy a shot. This is what women did. This would create dates. This would create relationships. If a man was creative with the date, it didn't have to be the yacht party. It didn't have to be bottle service at the club. It didn't have to be the resort. No, it could be a road trip from LA to Solvang, from LA to San Diego, from LA to Vegas and back. It could be a turnaround. Don't even have to stay in a hotel. Don't have to do the 5-star hotel. Of course, some women would want that. Yes, yes, of course. But it didn't have to happen in every situation. You had more women that were open to the simplistic stuff. Believe me, fellas, it's crazy how it changed. Simple stuff would get you a win as long as you were confident. You could take the most simplest thing and turn it into something extravagant. If you were a man that knew how to do this, women were open to it. They were. But as soon as social media and Instagram came along, it changed the game completely, folks. So I just wanted to give you that, because some of you think that dating was the way that it is now, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. That is bull. Like I said, if you're between the ages of 18 and 30, you wouldn't believe how easy it was. And if your parents haven't told you this, shame on them. They should have told you. They should have shared their stories with you. I don't have kids. Okay. This would be one of the stories I would give to my son. Like, hey, let me tell you about 1994. Let me tell you about 1996. I know it's different today, but the same elements are there. You just have to repackage it. Same elements, but you got to repackage it. That's what's going on today. So that same confidence needs to be there. You got to be able to have a conversation. You got to be able to engage the eye contact. All of those old recipes that worked in the 90s and early 2000s, technically they do still work, but there's a little bit more, there's more ingredients to it. You know what I mean? There's more ingredients. Because today I can talk to a woman. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care how attractive she is. Whatever, I don't care about being rejected. I would tell my son, don't worry about rejection. It's going to happen. Just keep it moving and, have your stuff together. The idea of having your stuff together is nothing new. That was always the case. But, hey, it has gotten to some crazy levels. And somehow there's got to be a balance to this. Somehow there has to be a return to the good stuff. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I tell you, you ladies are going to be fighting over these high earners.